Death of a Unicorn was directed by Alex Scharfman and stars Paul Rudd as Elliot, a lawyer who is heading to his rich employer's house in a remote location with his daughter Riley, played by Jenna Ortega. When the two are driving to the house, they accidentally hit a unicorn. After initially trying to hide it from the rich family he works for, the family decides they need to harness the power of the unicorn for themselves, but the unicorn has some parents that come looking for it. We have so much Jurassic Park inspired imagery in this movie that I must lead off with it. Just like in Jurassic Park, it has a slow build. Then the second half is basically an all-crazy monster action movie. To begin with, I really like most of the rich family. All of them have various levels of camp to their characters, but the standout here is the son of the patriarch, who is played by Poulter. Even before the monsters are introduced, this guy is completely ridiculous, such as inviting Paul Rudd into a hot tub to have these weird therapy sessions, and talking to Jenna Ortega about creating mood boards. He clearly gives off that vibe that he believes he's better than everyone. But once the scientists who are in this family's employ begin explaining what is going on with the unicorn dust, then this guy turns the crank of camp up to 11. Up to and including stealing a vial of unicorn dust, just so he can snort it throughout the whole second half of the film. I also like the housekeeper guy of this family. He's played by Carrigan. He is the whipping boy for the family, always being asked to do the silliest tasks for them, only to have the family forget that they even asked him to do what they did. But he still does it like the good housekeeper that he is. The gore in this movie is sparse, but when it is shown, it is impressive. Yes, it is CGI gore, so it doesn't have that boom feeling you get from some of the gorier horror films, but since this is mostly a monster comedy movie, I bought into the gore. People die in this movie in very funny ways. Paul Rudd has been the same age since like 1995, and Jenna Ortega is probably the most successful actress of her generation besides maybe Mikey Madison, so I'm always excited to see both of them. And they both play their roles fine. Ortega as this rebellious daughter who has some sort of odd connection to the unicorn from touching its horn, and Rudd who is playing the straight man and yes man to this ridiculous rich family, who goes so far as to try and rationalize their actions as being for the good of humankind, but only for it to actually benefit them and their circle. Unfortunately, my criticism boils down to one simple thing. This movie is supposed to be a comedy, and other than the kills making me chuckle because I'm just a psychopath, I didn't laugh very much in this movie. It felt like everyone was turning their dials to be camp, but never at the right times for me. It felt like every joke came a second too late or a second too short. The jokes feel like they were inserted at wrong points in the flow of the story. When I criticize a comedy, it's the hardest genre to review because whether or not you laugh is so individual. So maybe people will find the film funny, but I think it's a victim of its own unique idea, only for it to fall into surface level cliches. Death of a Unicorn's first half, visually, looks like it was filmed 10 years ago. The CGI is pretty bad in this section of the film, but the second half is done much better, and the CGI looks more impressive once the characters are being chased around by these unicorns. The majority of the action with the unicorns takes place mostly at night, so not only does this add potential tension, but it helps the visual appearance of the creatures. So the look of the picture goes from bad to acceptable after about 50 minutes or so. But if I'm sticking with the comparisons to Jurassic Park, I have to say that the dinosaurs in that movie look more convincing and organic with the world than the ones in Death of a Unicorn do. And that film came out over 30 years ago. I don't know if this is a budgetary issue or if this is an example of the idea of being bigger than what they could afford, but I never once thought these creatures organically belonged in the world they were supposed to be inhabiting. There's a few dreamlike sequences throughout the movie that are especially bad looking to me. You could just tell that Ortega and Rudd were standing in front of green screens, and it pulled me out of a movie I was already underwhelmed by. As I said earlier, the son steals this movie, and he does. His father is almost too over the top though, in a bad way. There's a hunting sequence with this character and Paul Rudd, and the guy might as well be holding a goblet in his hand with how sinister he himself. It's like he knew that the role was campy, but decided to make his character look like it belonged in the film Spookies instead of a Jurassic Park-like film. I also never bought Rudd and Ortega as father and daughter. I just didn't feel that organic chemistry between them. When they are apart from each other, they are totally fine. I like seeing Ortega investigate what's going on, but Rudd's constant portrayal of doing anything to please this rich family grated on my nerves after a while and began to seem forced and not what a father would do when their child is going through this situation. There's a backstory of them grieving the passing of Ortega's mom, but it's only given lip service to and nothing else. So it wasn't a part of the story enough for it to grow into true pathos so we could buy them as father and daughter attempting to grieve together. It felt like a mandatory heart tug thing that had to be inserted in the midst of all this campy comedy and monster chasing. It's a weird combination that didn't quite work for me. I think this is an example of where the comedy works against the tension the film is trying to convey. So when we have these unicorns running around, stampeding, destroying things, and killing people, by Cat joke about how dopey and stupid all of the characters are, drains the tension. And since the comedy isn't that sharp either for me, it leaves me feeling neither tense nor smiling in humor. This isn't a bad movie. I like the performances of the son and the housekeeper too much to think that. But it's a movie, like many others, that seem to have had a good concept, but then stretched it out for too long with jokes that I just didn't find very funny. You could probably catch this on streaming because some of the scientific stuff surrounding the unicorns is kind of funny. And I'll never not enjoy watching people getting torn in half. But I can only say that you may enjoy it as a movie you casually watch and not much more than that, unfortunately. I give Death of a Unicorn 2.5 stars out of 4. It has a good concept and a first-rate cast, but I think the two leads portrayed their roles in ways that were different than the supporting cast, and it comes out as campiness trying to take itself seriously, and none of it fully fleshes out to be a fun time for me overall. Okay, so Death of a Unicorn. What is everyone's thoughts on this film? Or what is everyone's favorite Jenna Ortega role so far? Please let me know. I sometimes hate reviewing comedies because I will get told that something is hilarious to someone that I did not find funny at all. They're the hardest genre to review in my opinion. Anyway, if you like this, please like and subscribe. Follow me on social media if you like. And until next time, I am Ghost.